A policeman is driving past a roadside apple stand when he notices the sign. Apple seeds, guaranteed to make you smarter, $20 per seed. He pulls over and informs the vendor that it is fraud and false advertising to make absurd claims like this. No, 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 the vendor tells the cop. My apples are a special variety, a scientific miracle. Buy just one seed, eat it, and you will notice an increase in intelligence. If not, I promise to refund your $20. All right, says the cop. But if this doesn't work, I'm shutting your operation down. He hands over a $20 bill, takes the seed, chews it up, and waits for it to kick in. After a few moments, he says, You know, even if you're not lying, I could have bought a whole bag of your apples and had enough seeds to last me months. Ah, yes, says the vendor. It's working already. A teenage boy had just passed his driving test and asked his father as to when they could discuss his use of the car. His father said he'd make a deal with his son. You bring your grades up from a C to a B average, study your Bible a little, and get your hair cut. Then we'll talk about the car. The boy thought about that for a moment, decided he'd settle for the offer, and they agreed on it. After about 6 weeks, his father said, Son, you've brought your grades up, and I've observed that you have been studying your Bible, but I'm disappointed you haven't had your hair cut. The boy said, You know, Dad, I've been thinking about that. And I've noticed in my studies of the Bible that Samson had long hair, John the Baptist had long hair, Moses had long hair, and there's even strong evidence that Jesus had long hair. The father responded, Did you also notice that they all walked everywhere they went? 3 new fathers, an Englishman, a Welshman, and an Indian, are looking at their newborn babies' cribs in the hospital. All 3 babies are side by side, and the fathers are congratulating each other on their new arrivals. Just then, a nurse enters the room looking quite flustered. I'm sorry, says the nurse, but we've lost the paperwork and can't tell you whose baby is whose. The 3 fathers look at each other and agree that the only possible solution to avoid embarrassing the hospital is to just choose a baby, take it home, and make sure it is loved as any child should be. The Englishman steps forward and exclaims, I would like to choose first. The other 2 fathers roll their eyes but agree. The Englishman walks to the 3 babies and without any hesitation picks up what is quite obviously the Indian man's child. As the Englishman goes to leave, he catches the eye of the Indian and says, Sorry, mate, but one of those 2 babies back there is Welsh, and I can't take that risk. A psychologist visits an engineer in his hospital bed. The guy had just jumped off a bridge. The psychologist says, Hey there, Ahmed, I'm Dr. Adams. How you feeling today? And the engineer replies, In pain, but lucky to be alive, I guess. Dr. Adams wants to help, so she asks the engineer about his life. The engineer tells her he came from Libya a year ago. Life in Libya was rough, especially after Gaddafi was out. He told her about the power outages in Tripoli and studying electrical engineering by candlelight. He finally got good enough to get a job in America. So he kisses his girlfriend goodbye, tells his family not to worry about food anymore, he'll start sending his paychecks home, and hops on a plane to California. He's working 100-hour weeks at a startup called TechWave, believes fully in the company, even puts all his money into the company's stock. The psychologist, who's heard of TechWave, thought they were doing great. Asks him, But TechWave is the new hot thing. Why did you jump? I thought they were too, but this morning I got a text saying the company would be closed for Good Friday. A Chinese doctor can't find a job in a hospital in America, so he opens a clinic and puts a sign outside that reads, Get treatment for $20. If not cured, get back $100. An American lawyer thinks this is a great opportunity to earn $100 and goes to the clinic. Lawyer, I have lost my sense of taste. Chinese, nurse, bring medicine from box number 14 and put 3 drops in the patient's mouth. Lawyer, this is kerosene. Chinese, congrats, your sense of taste is restored. Give me my $20. The annoyed lawyer goes back after a few days to try to recover his money. Lawyer, I have lost my memory. I can't remember anything. Chinese, nurse, bring medicine from box number 14 and put 3 drops in his mouth. Lawyer, annoyed, this is kerosene. You gave this to me last time for restoring my taste. Chinese, Congrats, you got your memory back. Give me $20. The fuming lawyer pays him and then comes back a week later, determined to get back $100. Lawyer, my eyesight has become very weak. I cannot see at all. Chinese, well, I don't have any medicine for that, so take this $100. Lawyer, staring at the note. But this is $20, not $100. Chinese, congrats, your eyesight is restored. Give me $20. A despondent young woman who had lost her job and her house had decided to commit suicide. She was walking along a bridge across the harbor, getting the nerve to jump in, when a young man saw her. "Don't do it," he called out. He looked at her and realized she was incredibly beautiful. He came closer. "What's wrong?" he asked. The woman told him. "Okay, here's the thing," he said. "I'm a crew member on a ship that leaves for Europe tomorrow morning. How about you come with me on the ship? I'll bring you food and drink." He slid his arm around her. "I keep you happy. You keep me happy." She agreed. After all, there wasn't much else to do. She didn't have family. The man was quite handsome as well. No harm in trying. The next morning, he hid her in one of the lifeboats on the ship with a pillow and a blanket. Every night, he brought her 3 sandwiches and a piece of fruit, and they made love until dawn. One day, about a week after the affair started, the captain was doing his rounds and found her inside one of the lifeboats. "What the hell are you doing here?" She explained what was going on. "I get food and a trip to Europe, and he gets to screw me." "He sure does, sweetheart. This is the Sydney Harbor ferry." A girl goes into the doctor's office for a checkup. As she takes off her blouse, the doctor notices a red H on her chest. "How did you get that mark on your chest?" asks the doctor. "Oh, my boyfriend went to Harvard, and he's so proud of it, he never takes off his Harvard sweatshirt even when we make love," she replies. A couple of days later, another girl comes in for a checkup. As she takes off her blouse, he notices a blue Y on her chest. "How did you get that mark on your chest?" asks the doctor. "Oh, my boyfriend went to Yale, and he's so proud of it that he never takes off his Yale sweatshirt, even when we make love," she replies. A couple of days later, another girl comes in for a checkup. As she takes off her blouse, he notices a green M on her chest. "Do you have a boyfriend at Michigan?" asks the doctor. "No, but I have a girlfriend at Wisconsin. Why do you ask?" There was a guy named John who worked on the 15th floor of an office building. John was so lazy that even standing in the elevator felt like exercise to him. One morning, he came in late as usual, holding a giant cup of coffee and moving slower than a snail on vacation. His boss stopped him and asked, "John, why are you late again?" John sighed dramatically and said, "Sir, the elevator was broken, so I had to wait until it started working again." The boss frowned. "You waited instead of taking the stairs." John nodded proudly. "Of course, I stood there for 2 hours pressing the button. I almost burned 3 calories. The boss was speechless. "John, you could have walked up." John looked horrified. "Walk? Up 15 floors? Are you trying to kill me? My legs are purely decorative." The boss shook his head and walked away. John finally got into the elevator. As the doors closed, he sighed again and whispered to himself, "People these days, so judgmental of a man's commitment to doing absolutely nothing." A bear and a rabbit are walking through the woods when they come across a golden frog. They think this is an amazing discovery, and they are even more amazed when it talks to them. The golden frog admits that he is a magical frog and doesn't often meet other residents of the forest, but when he does, he grants them 3 wishes each. The bear immediately asks that all the other bears in the forest be female. The frog immediately grants this wish. The rabbit, after thinking for a while, asks for a crash helmet, and one appears, which he places on his head. The bear is amazed at this, but carries on with his next wish. He asks that all the bears in the neighboring forests be female as well. This wish is also fulfilled. The rabbit then wishes that he could have a motorcycle. It appears before him, and he climbs on board and starts revving the engine. The bear cannot believe it. He remarks to the rabbit that he has wasted 2 wishes. Then, shaking his head, he makes his final wish. "I wish that all the other bears in the world be female as well."
The frog replies that it has been done, and they both turn to the rabbit for his last wish. The rabbit thinks for a second, then revs up the engine and says, "I wish for the bear to be gay," and promptly drives off as fast as he can.
A blind man walks into a restaurant and takes a seat. The owner, who's also the waiter, hands him a menu. The man kindly says, "I'm blind, sir. I can't read the menu. Just bring me a used fork from another table and I'll figure it out." Confused but curious, the owner brings over a fork from the pile of dirty dishes. The blind man sniffs it and says, "Perfect. I'll have the meatloaf with mashed potatoes." The owner is stunned and rushes to tell his wife, who does the cooking. A few days later, the blind man returns. Once again, the owner hands him a menu out of habit. The man gently reminds him, "Remember me? I'm the blind man." Realizing his mistake, the owner fetches another used fork. After a quick sniff, the man confidently orders, "Ah, that smells good. Macaroni and cheese with broccoli." Still baffled, the owner plans a little test. The next week, when the blind man walks in, the owner hurries to the kitchen and tells his wife, "Hey, Mary, rub this fork on your underwear before I take it to him." Mary, though puzzled, goes along with the prank. When the blind man sniffs the fork, he pauses and then grins. "I didn't know Mary worked here." When a group of tourists visited a crocodile farm, the owner of the place launched a daring proposal. "Whoever dares to jump, swim to shore, and survive, I will give $1 million. Nobody dared to move. Suddenly, a man jumped into the water and desperately swam towards the shore while he was chased by all the crocodiles. With great luck, he arrived, taking the admiration of everyone in the place. Then the owner announced, "We have a brave winner." After collecting their reward, the couple returned to the hotel. Upon arrival, the manager told him he was very brave to jump. Then the man said, "I didn't jump. Someone pushed me." His wife smiled. Moral: behind every successful man, there is a woman who pushes him. Sally, a blonde, goes on her first camping trip. Her husband, who was a scout leader, was sick, so she volunteered to take over for him for the weekend. She got everyone together and assigned different duties to each scout. Gabby was responsible for the food supplies. Mike would be the cook this trip. Johnny was responsible for their maps and making up a time schedule. Tim was to decide on their events and fit them into Johnny's schedule, and Sally would test all their equipment before setting out. They arrived at Big Moose Mountain, and everyone was excited. They arrived right on schedule and were getting ready for their first event, hiking up the mountain. But first, they wanted to get something to eat. So Sally asked Mike if he would prepare the meal, and of course, Mike said he would. About 10 minutes later, he came back and told Sally, "I can't make the supper. I can't light a fire with the matches you brought." Sally replied, "I can't understand that. Those matches should be perfectly fine. I tested them all just before we left." A homeless guy is traveling down a country lane. Tired and hungry, he comes across a pub called the George and the Dragon. Although it's late and the pub is closed, he knocks on the door. The innkeeper's wife sticks her head out a window. "Could I have some food?" he asks. The woman glances at his shabby clothes and obviously poor condition and sternly says, "No." "Any chance of a pint of ale then?" "No," she says again. "Could I at least sleep in your barn?" "No." By this time, she was clearly getting very annoyed. The down-and-out says, "Okay then, might I please?" "What now?" The woman interrupts impatiently. "Might I please have a word with George?" The class of 1950 gets together for their class reunion. Not many people are left, but 2 of the 10 people to attend were Harry, an 88-year-old widower, and Esther, an 87-year-old divorcee. Over the course of the evening, they had a great time chatting about old times and their families. They each felt a real connection, and by the time the night was out, Harry had proposed, and Esther had happily accepted. The next morning, Harry woke up and was frustrated to realize that he couldn't remember Esther's answer to his proposal. Embarrassed, he picks up the phone to call her. "Hello, Esther. I'm so sorry, but my memory isn't what it used to be. Last night, when I asked you to marry me, did you say yes or no?" "I said yes!" Esther exclaimed excitedly. "And I'm so glad that you called, because for the life of me, I couldn't remember who asked." Two women are discussing life in the retirement village they live in with their spouses and how they like it. One woman tells the other that she misses sex, though, to which the other replies that she and her hubby still have sex whenever she wants. The first woman asks how, and the second woman says every so often when he's in the bathroom getting ready for bed, she gets naked and lays on the bed holding her legs up in the air, so when he comes out he can't help but have sex with her. The first woman decides to try this a couple of weeks later. Her husband is in the bathroom getting ready for bed, so she gets naked, lays down and struggles to get one leg up and then the other as she's holding them shakily. Her husband comes out and exclaims, "Good Lord, woman, put in your teeth and brush your hair. You're starting to look like an asshole." So a woman brought a very limp parrot into a veterinary hospital. As she lay her pet on the table, the vet pulled out his stethoscope and listened to the bird's chest. After a moment or two, the vet shook his head sadly and said, "I'm so sorry. Polly has passed away." The distressed owner wailed, "Are you sure? I mean, you haven't done any testing on him or anything. He might just be in a coma or something." The vet rolled his eyes, shrugged, turned, and left the room, returning a few moments later with a beautiful black Labrador. As the bird's owner looked on in amazement, the dog stood on his hind legs, put his front paws on the examination table, and sniffed the dead parrot from top to bottom. He then looked at the vet with sad eyes and shook his head. The vet led the dog out, but returned a few moments later with a cat. The cat jumped up and also sniffed delicately at the ex-bird. The cat sat back, shook its head, meowed, and ran out of the room. The vet looked at the woman and said, "I'm sorry, but like I said, your parrot is most definitely 100% certifiably dead." He then turned to his computer terminal, hit a few keys, and produced a bill, which he handed to the woman. The parrot's owner, still in shock, took the bill. $150, she cried. $150 just to tell me my bird is dead? The vet shrugged. If you'd taken my word for it, the bill would only have been $20, but with the lab report and the CAT scan, what did you expect? John and his girlfriend, Mary, decide to become bank robbers. Mary does the actual robbing at gunpoint inside the banks, while John waits outside as the getaway driver. They're initially successful with a string of heists that make headlines and they become folk heroes, until one day their luck runs out and they get caught. At trial, the judge condemns Mary to 10 years in prison, while John gets 2 years. However, once they get to their respective prisons, they discover that due to a clerical error, John will be serving 10 years and Mary only 2. Despite her insistence, John convinces Mary to keep quiet about it. After 2 years, Mary gets out and she continues to visit John faithfully every month, and they exchange letters and phone calls regularly for the remainder of his 10 years. Finally, after he does his time, John gets out and is joyfully reunited with Mary. They get married and move to a different state and start anew, leaving their life of crime behind. They raise a family with children and grandchildren and eventually reach old age after having lived a happy marriage. At their 50th wedding anniversary party, the entire family and friends are gathered. A great celebration is had with many laughs and stories recounting their life together. The conversation turns to the secrets to a happy marriage. One of the guests asks Mary why she decided to stick with John while he was in prison, despite all of the hardships. Mary answers, "Well, you know you have found the one when you finish each other's sentences." An Irish couple took in an 18-year-old girl as a lodger. She asked if she could have a bath, but the woman of the house told her they didn't have a bath, although if she wanted to, she could use a tin bath in front of the fire. "Monday's the best night, when my husband goes out to darts," she said. The girl agreed to have a bath the following Monday. After her husband had gone to the pub for his darts match, the woman filled the bath and watched the girl get undressed. She was surprised to see that the lass didn't have any hair down there. She mentioned this to her husband when he came home. He didn't believe her, so she said, "Next Monday, when you go to darts, leave a little early and wait in the back garden. I'll leave a gap in the curtains so you can see for yourself." So the following Monday, while the girl again got undressed, the wife asked, "Do you shave?" "No," replied the girl. I've just never grown any hair down there. Do you have hair? Oh, yes, said the woman, and she pulled up her nightdress and showed the girl that she was really generously endowed in the hair department. Very generously indeed. The girl finished her bath and went to bed. Later that night, when the husband came in, the wife asked him, "Did you see it?" "Yes," he said. "But why did you have to show her yours?" "Why ever are you worried about that?" she said. "You've seen it often enough before." "I know," he said, "but the entire dart team hadn't." A teacher asked her fifth-grade class to talk to their parents about life events in their families that demonstrate a moral. For example, the early bird gets the worm. They would share the stories in class on Monday. Monday morning saw the class ready to begin, and the teacher asked if anyone had any stories to share that had a moral to it. Little Johnny jumps to his feet, waving both of his hands wildly. Little Johnny didn't have a good reputation for sharing stories that were appropriate for a fifth-grade class. So the teacher tried her best to ignore Johnny. Little Mary put her hand up, and the teacher called on her. She told a story of being sent out to collect eggs in the chicken coop. She brought with her a single basket. After collecting all the eggs available, she headed back to show her mother how well she did. But she tripped on the way in, falling on the basket and breaking all the eggs. The teacher asked what the moral of the story was. Mary said, "Don't put all your eggs in one basket. This is a very good example." "Thank you for sharing, Mary. Anyone else have a story?" Little Johnny again is going wild trying to get the teacher's attention. The teacher tries to ignore him, but no one else raises their hand to volunteer a story. So the teacher had to relent and ask little Johnny what his story was. Johnny starts off by saying that his Aunt Sue is a military fighter jet pilot. Little Johnny's dad told him about one of Aunt Sue's missions during recent conflicts. When Aunt Sue flew missions, she always carried with her an automatic rifle with lots of ammo, a large knife, and a bottle of whiskey. She likes to drink the whiskey flying back after the mission to celebrate. On this particular mission, Aunt Sue's jet was hit by an enemy missile. She had to eject from the fighter. Coming down with her parachute, she worried about her bottle of whiskey. What if it breaks when she lands? So she drank the whole bottle. As she got closer to the ground, she saw 50 enemy soldiers with their rifles pointed at her. So she begins shooting the soldiers with her rifle. She kills 40 of them before she runs out of ammo. Landing on the ground, Aunt Sue pulled out her knife and killed the remaining 10 enemy soldiers. The teacher was aghast. What possible life moral could you possibly have from this terrible story? Little Johnny smiled and said, "Don't screw with Aunt Sue if she's been drinking." The teacher passed out. The world's richest man is dying. He's made peace with that. But what bothers him is no one in the afterlife will even know it. Here he's a self-made man who created this huge fortune from scratch, but he can't take it with him. Not that he could spend it, of course, but just to show everyone what a great success the poor boy had become. He broods over this, so that his guardian angel is worried. One night, the angel flies to heaven to consult Jesus. Jesus says, "Well, you know earthly wealth has no place here." The angel replies, "I know, Lord, but he's been such a good man. Did a lot for charity, ran his business honestly. He's only human. He can't help having this little quirk. Isn't there something we can do to ease his mind?" Jesus thinks a moment. "All right, let's look him up in the book of life." The book is like a film of this man's life, and seeing his struggles, Jesus is moved. He tells the guardian angel, "Wake him and tell him I will allow him to bring one suitcase, only one, mind you, and he can fill it with whatever wealth he chooses. At the moment of his death, it will be brought to heaven with him." The angel goes down and gives the message. The guy is happy, but what should he bring? Our money would mean nothing to people from another time. Jewels could be faked, and stocks and bonds could not be traded, so they'd be so much paper. Finally, it dawns on him. Gold. Gold has been valued throughout history. He sends out for the biggest suitcase he can find, fills it with gold bars, and sets it beside his bed. Now he can die in peace, and he does. True to the promise, he arrives at the pearly gates, suitcase in hand. St. Peter greets him warmly and says, "All right, Let's see what was so important to you that eternal life and bliss wasn't enough. The man proudly opens the suitcase, stuffed with row after row of little gold bars. St. Peter stares at it, puzzled, and says, "You brought pavement?" A married couple at a zoo walk past a gorilla enclosure. Says the woman, "Mark, do you know that gorillas are the only animals that resemble men in their behavior? Look, seeing that no one is looking, I'll expose one of my breasts to it and see how horny it gets, just as men do." Mary then exposes one of her breasts, and sure enough, the gorilla gets excited and grabs the bars of the enclosure as if it wanted to break free. "See?" says the woman. "Now I know why you react the way you do. Men can't control their animal instincts just like gorillas can't." Says Mark, "Now expose both breasts and let us see what happens." The woman exposes both breasts to the gorilla, and it gets very excited and is now desperately trying to escape from the enclosure. Says Mark, "This is incredible. Now pull your skirt up, turn around and expose your bum, and let us see what happens." The woman pulls her skirt up, turns around with her bum to the gorilla, which by now was extremely aroused, breaks free from the enclosure, grabs the woman, and starts yanking the clothes off her. The woman yells, "Mark, what do I do now? Please help me." Mark replies, "Now, tell him you have a headache and you're not in the mood. Let us see if gorillas and men are the same." Several years ago, Andy was sentenced to prison. During his stay, he got along well with the guards and all his fellow inmates. The warden knew that deep down Andy was a good person, so the warden made arrangements for the inmate to learn a trade while doing his time. Some 3 years later, Andy was recognized as one of the best carpenters in the local area. Often he would be given a weekend pass to do odd jobs for citizens in the community, and he always reported back to prison by early Sunday evening. Andy was a model inmate. Then one day, the warden considered remodeling his kitchen, but he lacked the skills to build a set of kitchen cupboards and a large countertop. So he called Andy into his office and asked him if he could do the job. To the warden's surprise, Andy simply refused to help. "But you're an expert, Andy, and I really need your help," said the warden. "Gosh, warden, I'd really like to help you. But counterfeiting is what got me into prison in the first place." A man with 2 buckets of fish was leaving Loch Lomond, well known for its fishing, and was stopped by a game warden. The warden asked the man, "Do you have a license to catch those fish?" The man replied to the game warden, "No, sir, these are my pet fish." "Pet fish?" the warden replied. "Yes, sir, every night I take these fish down to this beach and let them swim around for about a half hour. When I whistle, they all come back and jump back into my buckets, and I take them home. We do this every night." "That's a bunch of hooey," said the warden. "Fish can't do that." "No, really," says the man. "Here, I'll show you." And he releases the fish in the loch. "Well, I've got to see this," the game warden replied. The man and the warden stood and waited. After several minutes, the game warden turned to the man and said, "Well?" "Well, what?" the man asked. "When are you going to call them back?" the game warden huffs. "Call who back?" the man asked. "The fish." "What fish?" Young preacher Nathan was sitting in a cafe eating his lunch. He opened an envelope he'd just received that morning from his mother and found that she had included a 10-pound note. He thought to himself, "Thanks, Mum, I am sure that will come in handy." Nathan finished his food, and as he left the cafe, he saw a beggar leaning against the wall. Deciding the poor man could probably needed the money more than he did, he crossed out the name and address on the envelope, and across the top in large letters wrote, "Persevere." So as to be discreet, he put the envelope under his arm and dropped it as he walked past the man. The poor man picked it up and read the message and smiled. The next day, as Nathan was enjoying his meal, the beggar tapped him on the shoulder and handed him a big wad of money. Surprised, the young preacher asked him what that was for. The man replied, "This is your half of the winnings. Persevere came in first and paid 35-1. A young man volunteered for military service during World War II. He had such a high aptitude for aviation that he was sent right to Pensacola Naval Air Station, skipping recruit training. The very first day at Pensacola, he solos and is the best flyer on the base. All they could do was give him his gold wings and assign him immediately to an aircraft carrier in the Pacific. On his first day aboard, he took off and single-handedly shot down 6 Japanese fighter planes. Then, climbing up to 20,000 feet, he found 9 more Japanese planes and shot them all down as well. Noting that his fuel was getting low, he descended quickly and came in for a perfect carrier landing on the deck. He threw back the canopy, climbed out, and jogged over to the captain. Saluting smartly, he said, "Well, sir, how did I do on my very first day?" The captain turned around, bowed politely, and replied, "You make one very, very serious mistake."